Standing before the altar, Amanda was met with the stern gaze of her mother, who, in a tone of contempt, declared, "You will not marry that man." With her heart racing, Amanda realized that she had to choose between the family she had always known and the love that had won her over. How far would she be willing to go to protect this feeling? On a rainy night in São Paulo, Amanda, who worked as a hospital administrator, was leaving her shift in a hurry. The parking lot was deserted, and her footsteps echoed on the wet asphalt. At 28 years old, her life was a routine carefully approved by her mother, Beatriz: work, gym and events in São Paulo's high society. "Damn, I forgot my umbrella," she muttered, protecting her document folder with her blazer. It was then that two men appeared from the shadows. One of them, holding something shiny, approached. "Give me your bag and your cell phone," he ordered. Amanda froze, her legs trembling. Before she could react, a deep voice rang out in the silence, "Hey, leave her alone." A man in simple, worn-out clothes, a plaid shirt and worn-out pants, approached with firm steps. "Get out of here, man," shouted one of the robbers. But the stranger remained calm. "I'm a doctor at this hospital. 3 police cars are on their way to change shifts. You have 2 minutes to get lost." Faced with this firmness, the robbers backed away and fled. Still shaking, Amanda turned to the man who had helped her. "I don't even know how to thank you." He replied with a gentle smile, "No need. I'm Raphael." She looked at him, intrigued. "Did you say you're a doctor? I've never seen you around here." Raphael looked away, adjusting his worn-out backpack. "Actually, I work in maintenance at the hospital," he replied simply. Amanda insisted, "Let me buy you a coffee, that's the least I can do." In the corner cafe, under the soft light of the room, she discovered that Raphael, despite his modest job, spoke with passion. "How did you manage to cope so well in that situation?" she asked curiously. He hesitated, answering only, "Life teaches you a lot." What Amanda didn't know, and Raphael wasn't ready to tell her, was that he had already performed surgeries in conflict zones and seen horrors and hope in the most devastated regions of the world. "There's something about you, different," Amanda commented, absent-mindedly stirring her coffee. Raphael smiled, as if carrying unsaid stories. "Sometimes, people are more than they seem," he said. Surprised, Amanda asked, "How do you know my name?" Raphael pointed to her name tag, still hanging around her neck. They laughed, and Amanda felt something awaken in her heart. "Can I see you again?" she asked, without expecting her own boldness. And there, under that rainy night, began a story that would change everything Amanda knew about appearances and judgments. Raphael looked down at his work-marked hands and then at Amanda's elegance. "Are you sure?" "I'm not exactly." He hesitated, but Amanda interrupted him, smiling. "I think you're exactly the kind of person I'd like to get to know better." From that meeting on, Amanda's life turned upside down. Each new moment with Raphael revealed unexpected facets of his personality, showing that, beneath the simplicity of his appearance, there was someone extraordinary. Until the day came for Raphael to be introduced to Amanda's family, and dinner at the Mendonça mansion quickly became tense. As soon as he entered, Beatriz pulled her daughter aside, whispering, "My daughter, have you lost your mind? Look at him, he's a maintenance assistant, Mom," Amanda corrected, standing firm. "And that doesn't define who he is." While Amanda's father, Ricardo, tried to maintain a polite smile, her younger sister, Patricia, threw Raphael looks of contempt. During dinner, Beatriz made a pointed comment, "So, Raphael, where did you study?" He calmly replied, "Actually, Mrs. Beatriz, I never had that opportunity, but I learned a lot from life." Beatriz smiled coldly, "The University of Life, how peculiar." Amanda discreetly held Raphael's hand under the table, trying to convey strength. Later, in the library, Beatriz confronted her daughter, "Amanda, you're throwing your life away. Think about what people will say. We, Mendonça, have always been a role model. Amanda replied firmly, "How did you manage, Mom, when you married Dad? Grandma told me about your humble origins and that you worked as a saleswoman to pay for college." Beatrice turned pale and whispered, "And that's exactly why I fought so hard to be accepted. I want to spare you this suffering." Amanda retorted, "But you're doing to me what they did to you." Meanwhile, in the garden, Raphael was talking to Ricardo. "I know that maybe it doesn't seem like enough to your daughter." "It's not about appearing," Ricardo interrupted, "it's about being." Raphael replied firmly, "I can offer her love, respect and a chance to be who she really is, not who they expect her to be." Tensions rose when Beatrice began introducing potential suitors to Amanda at social events. After one such meeting, Amanda returned home furious. "Enough, Mom. I'm not leaving Raphael. He's going to ruin your life." Beatrice snapped. "Have you thought about your children, how embarrassed they'll feel to have a father? A father who teaches true values?" Amanda interrupted, her voice thick with determination. "One who shows that character matters more than social status." Determined to prove that Raphael was hiding something, Beatrice hired an investigator to look into his past. Surprisingly, she found only records of volunteer work and community service. "It can't be," Beatrice muttered suspiciously. "Nobody is that simple." One afternoon, Amanda found her mother crying in her office. "Why don't you understand?" Beatrice said quietly. "I just want to protect you." "No, Mom," Amanda replied softly. "You're trying to protect yourself from facing your own prejudices." Amanda and Raphael faced constant opposition from her family together, which only strengthened their love for each other. Each criticism and look of contempt seemed to strengthen the bonds between them. Raphael, even feeling the weight of the insults, remained calm and dignified, never reacting to the provocations. One night, Amanda asked him, "Why do you put up with all this?" Raphael smiled mysteriously and replied, "Because some battles are won with love, not with war. And you are worth every battle, Amanda." On the day of the wedding, the church of Santa Cecilia was decorated with white lilies and orchids. Amanda, already dressed as a bride, looked at herself in the mirror while her friend Sophia adjusted her veil. "Are you sure you don't want me to try to talk to your mother one more time?" Sophia asked. Amanda took a deep breath. She had 6 months to accept. If she decided not to come, it's her choice. Suddenly, the door opened and Beatrice entered, elegant, with a look somewhere between despair and determination. "There's still time to give up this madness," he said, his voice trembling. "Mom, please," Amanda replied. "You're throwing your future away for a man who loves me, and whom I love," Amanda finished firmly. Meanwhile, Raphael, on the other side of the church, was adjusting the simple tie on his impeccable suit. His friend João, the best man at the wedding, tried to calm him down. "Breathe, man. You deserve this." Raphael admitted, with a touch of insecurity, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm being selfish, forget about her family." João exclaimed, but was interrupted by the beginning of the wedding march. Amanda walked down the aisle next to her father, while Raphael, his eyes shining, watched her from the altar. The priest began the ceremony. "We are gathered here," but a voice interrupted the moment. "Stop." Beatrice stood up, her voice trembling. "I can't allow this. My daughter will not marry this man." A murmur of surprise filled the church. Amanda stopped, tears welling up. Raphael, in a calm tone, tried to answer, "Mrs. Beatrice, I understand you don't understand anything," she cried. "You are nobody, just a liar." Suddenly, a firm voice echoed from the entrance, "Sorry I'm late." A tall, elegant man hurried in, with a strong foreign accent. "Dr. Raphael," he said, visibly moved. "I can hardly believe I finally found you." He introduced himself as James Morrison, the British ambassador, and turned to everyone. This man saved my life and the lives of many others in a refugee camp in Syria 3 years ago. Silence filled the church as Beatrice, in shock, held on to the pew. I've been looking for him for years, Morrison continued, and when I heard about this wedding, I had to come in person. This man, whom you despise, is one of the most brilliant and dedicated doctors I've ever met. Amanda looked at Raphael in surprise. Why didn't you ever tell me? She murmured. He calmly replied, because I didn't seek recognition, Amanda. I did what I did because I believe that titles and status do not define who we really are. James Morrison went on to tell how Raphael had performed risky surgeries in precarious conditions and saved countless lives. The impact of his words transformed the room, revealing to everyone Raphael's true character, who was there not for status, but for true love. When the ambassador finished speaking, the church was plunged into an impressive silence. Raphael had turned down a prestigious position in London, choosing to remain at the side of those most in need. Beatrice was pale, her hands trembling, the prejudice she had cultivated for so long crumbled in the face of this revelation. Can we continue? Amanda asked the priest, her voice firm and resolute, more passionate than ever. With an understanding smile, the priest resumed the ceremony, while Beatrice, silent and shaken, sat back down, absorbing everything she had discovered. At the reception, held in the buffet garden, the atmosphere was one of celebration and emotion, but also of revelations. Surrounded by the guests and a visibly thoughtful Beatrice, Raphael decided to share his story with everyone. Where do I start? He said, running a hand through his gray hair. 10 years ago, I was head of cardiac surgery at the Albert Einstein Hospital. Beatrice, incredulous, interrupted, but that's impossible. I knew all the doctors. Back then, I was using another name, Dr. Rafael Montenegro, he explained. After what I experienced in Syria, I needed to change my identity. Amanda held his hand, encouraging him to continue. I had prestige, money and recognition, but something was missing. That's when I accepted a 3-month humanitarian mission, which ended up becoming a 5-year mission. He closed his eyes, remembering, the first child I operated on there was only 6 years old, a victim of a bombing. We operated with flashlights, without the proper equipment. When she survived, I felt something change in me irreversibly. Ambassador Morrison added, Raphael developed a mobile surgery system that revolutionized care in war zones and saved countless lives. Amanda's father, Ricardo, still puzzled, asked, why come back like this, in such a different way? Raphael smiled, now with a touch of sadness. When I returned to Brazil, I realized that I could no longer fit into my old life. All the luxury and trivialities seemed empty to me. I decided to start over from scratch, to make a difference in a simpler way. As a maintenance assistant? Beatrice asked, her voice softer now. Raphael nodded. Every hallway I clean, every piece of equipment I fix, represents a small contribution to someone receiving better care. We don't need titles to make a difference. With tears in her eyes, Amanda added, that's how we met. He saved my life in that parking lot. Sophia, her best friend, joked, a doctor disguised as a hero. Raphael smiled, just a man who learned that true value lies in actions, not titles. Beatrice approached, her hand still shaking, and asked, why didn't you stand up for yourself when we? Raphael interrupted her gently, if I had used my past to defend myself, it would have reinforced the idea that appearances and titles are what matter most. I preferred to be known or rejected for who I am now. Amanda, in a soft tone, asked about the nightmares that, on some nights, left him restless. He nodded, admitting, they are memories of the war, the lives I couldn't save, the faces I'll never forget. I carry those memories along with these wrinkles and premature gray hairs. The silence was broken by Ricardo, who said, I think we owe you an apology. Raphael replied calmly, you don't owe me anything. Every experience, every trial, has brought me here, to Amanda. And that makes it all worth it. Gradually, even the most skeptical guests began to see beyond Raphael's worn appearance. His scars, modest clothes, and humble work were no longer signs of failure but rather a symbol of a silent journey of dedication to humanity. "Now I understand," Beatrice murmured, as if speaking to herself, "why my daughter fell in love with you." 3 months later, while sorting through old photographs, Beatrice came across an image that made her stop. It was a photo of her husband, Ricardo, in a makeshift hospital bed, accompanied by a doctor wearing a surgical mask, 5 years ago, during a work trip as a correspondent in Syria. With shaking hands, Beatrice called him. "Ricardo, that time in Syria, when you were injured, do you remember the doctor?" Ricardo replied, "I remember. He never took off his mask, but why?" Hours later, the family was gathered at the Mendonça home, with Amanda and Raphael among them. Beatrice clutched the photo tightly. "Raphael," she said, her voice breaking, 5 years ago, my husband was injured in Syria, and a doctor performed emergency surgery that saved his life." Raphael stared at the photo, his face growing pale. "It was you, wasn't it?" Beatrice whispered. "The masked doctor who saved Ricardo, it was you." The silence that followed was almost palpable. Ricardo approached Raphael and, in disbelief, asked, "You were the doctor?" Raphael replied gently, "That day, I performed 3 surgeries in a row. It was all very intense." Amanda covered her mouth in surprise. "That's why you seemed uncomfortable when you met Dad," she said. Raphael nodded. Something in his eyes seemed familiar, but after so many faces, so many surgeries, I wasn't sure. Then, something unexpected happened. Beatrice knelt before Raphael, something unthinkable to those who knew her. "For all this time, I treated as nothing the man who saved my husband's life, the man who kept my daughter from growing up without a father." Raphael, embarrassed, asked her to stand up. "No, I need everyone to see," Beatrice insisted, "I need them to see my shame, my regret. I judged you by what I saw, without ever trying to really know you." Ricardo, overcome with emotion, wrapped his arms around her. "Darling, you didn't know." "Exactly," she exclaimed, through tears. "We never stop to really know people, we only judge by their appearance." Raphael, holding her hand, said softly, "The important thing is that now we know who we really are." "No," Beatrice corrected, "the important thing is that now I know who I really am, and that I need to change." Watching the scene, Amanda approached. "Mom, does this mean?" "It means that your husband is the noblest man I have ever known," Beatrice replied, smiling through tears, "and that I was unfair for judging only by appearances." That night, during the family dinner, the first truly harmonious one, Beatrice made a toast. "To the blind judgments that we must overcome, to the love that illuminates, and especially to my son-in-law, who taught me that true greatness lies in the lives we touch and in the acts of kindness." Raphael, holding Amanda's hand, finally felt at peace. His scars, both visible and invisible, seemed less heavy now that he had found love and genuine acceptance. Later, he whispered to Amanda, "Sometimes we have to lose everything to find out what really matters." She smiled and replied, "And sometimes we have to face prejudices to find the truth about ourselves." If this story of love and transformation touched your heart, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more inspiring stories that challenge our perceptions and make us reflect on what really matters in life.